Rooch, thanks for that very kind article you wrote the other day.
Pleasure,
as well.
Tom. Now, do you want to tell us about the story of 200 games and how you've got here, in your words?
I was going to say, you told it probably better than what I ever could. I think it's a bit of a non-traditional path, and I've been very fortunate across my journey that people showed faith in me and gave me an opportunity, and I feel like every day I try to repay that. That goes all the way back to Nathan Bassett at Norwood, and then Jeff Parker and Matty Primus at Port Adelaide, and then obviously Kenny when he came to the club, and Chris Davies who supported him throughout that. So look, for me it's been a pretty simple recipe. It's been about hard work, leading by example through my actions, selfless, and just trying to be the best teammate I can be along the way.
And what have you learned along that way?
Look, I think most of my learning has come in the last few years when I've stepped into the leadership role and become more focused on my relationships and empathy and connection with others and the importance of that. I think for a long time there I went about my business doing my role and being a bit of a hard ass and quite honest and potentially ruthless at times in my feedback, and I've been able to mould that and change the way that I approach certain situations, and hopefully that's seen me become a better player, person and leader.
You don't get to 200 if you haven't got ability. You keep playing that down. So how have you built your way to being a 200 game player?
Yeah, look, I think there's certain skill sets in the game. Mine's not going to be the flowery, skillful, super athletic, exciting brand of football. It's a hard-nosed, reliable, coachable, tough brand of footy. I do the simple things relatively well, and I like to think that my coaches and teammates can rely on me to do what I say I'm going to do.
Tell me, when you reflect now, what are the moments that stick out for you along the way?
Yeah, I suppose there's positive moments and also negative or tougher moments, but also ones that I learned a lot from. The debut is obviously one that I'll never forget. To go to the MCG, tag Luke Hodge and lose by 26 goals, it was probably a baptism of fire, but and to get fined my entire match fee for bumping into an umpire. So that was certainly a memorable welcome to the AFL world. But in more recent times, I spoke about this the other day, but our approach to the whole of 2019 and the COVID-affected year and the way we embraced the challenges and how close we came to playing in a grand final. The boys' attitude and willingness to adapt and come in even closer as a group in that year was what probably was the key to our success. So that was a really proud year for me. And also just being able to run out in front of the boys every week with the one in my back and know that I have the opportunity to set the tone and represent what this group wants to stand for.
Tom, Ollie Wines had the same press conference a couple of days ago. He said that the biggest attribute that you had is the other side of your game in terms of nurturing players. He says that the development in that side of you has come a long way. How have you seen that, and how difficult has it been to go all of a sudden as a leader and start wrapping your arms around players and start being that sort of person?
Yeah, I've always had an enormous focus on making my teammates better. It's probably the way in which I did that. One of my skills is being vocal and directional and helping people learn. For me, the growth was not everybody learns the same, so I need to find other methods to get the message across. But I've always felt like that's been a string to my bow. I'm coachable myself, but I'm always willing to help the people around me and make them better. So, I suppose that's something that's held me in good stead across my journey.
What stage of your career did you have leadership aspirations? I mean, respectfully, I don't think there's too many blokes on the rookie list that think they're going to captain the footy club one day. Yeah,
I suppose for me it was always about leading by example and helping the team become the best they could be, and that sort of manifested itself in moving into a leadership group 4 or 5 years into my career, and that evolved into ending up as the captain of the footy club. I never would have thought that I'd be the captain of the Port Adelaide Footy Club. You look at the names that have gone before me, and they're all incredible players in their own right, and then they were given the captaincy and flourished in that role and were incredibly successful. So, yeah, I wasn't quite sure that my game style was one that added up, but I suppose when you boil it down to what Port Adelaide represents, it's a working class, community-based club. I feel like I've been a good fit.
Do you get advice from some of those previous captains?
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on Russell this year, but he was one that when you walk past him in the corridor and you come into the system and you spend your first 3 years going out on school visits with him, that you got advice from someone like that, but also you just through osmosis you just take in the lessons about how someone like that carries himself and what it means to them, and how they approach their day-to-day life, and I think that showed itself in the way he played footy and the human he was. And then also worked closely with Dom Cassisi, and Travis Boak's been a great sounding board since I took over the role from him as well.
What about next year? Would you like to hold on to the number one?
Look, it's an absolute privilege to wear the one, and I'll wear it for as long as the club and the playing group see me as the right person to do that for them. But obviously there'll come a time when we want to move on and someone else will have that honour.
And you talked about nurturing players. Have you got confidence in the young tools coming through in defence? Do you think that when you guys finally hang up the boots, there are others to replace you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the list management crew have done a magnificent job in the last 7 or 8 years building out a well-rounded list. Jake Piscini unfortunately fell victim to the ACL earlier in the year, but he was showing great progress as a footballer, and he was probably very likely to make his debut, and he'll be back early next year. Ollie Law's spending some time down back. He's got some great assets as a footballer through his athleticism and also how coachable he is. And then Sam Skinner's been dominant at SANFL this year, and like you said, I hope that the likes of Aaliyah, Tom Cleary, Trent McKenzie and myself can fill a couple of roles for a few more years.
Tom, the door's still open to the top 8. Are you ready to kick it down and go in, or what's going to happen in the next 4 weeks?
Absolutely. I mean, while we're still a mathematical chance, we go out there and worry about beating Collingwood this week, and what happens outside of that is out of our control. We just control what we can, and if that door stays ajar, I know the odds are probably against us, but while we're living and breathing, we'll keep going for the win. And you know what, regardless of where we end up in a week or a fortnight in 3 weeks' time, every week we go out there and we want to win.
Why do you see Collingwood as having had the ability to win so many close games this year?
Why? I haven't watched them particularly closely, but it certainly feels like they've been the opposite of us. They've been able to get over the line, and I think probably comes from the way they attack the game. When the game's on the line, they get bolder and braver and really take it on, and I think you make your own luck, and the way they play the game has certainly manifested that.
Are you going to be the team to stop them? 10 wins in a row they're
Yes.
coming up to? How do you do it?
Keep playing our brand of footy, do it for 4 quarters. We talk about the contest, talk about executing our ball movement and skills going forward, so maximising those opportunities, and incredible high pressure game.
You've obviously got full faith in the ruck combination as well. Resisted bringing in Teagle?
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's just been phenomenal, and paired with Jeremy, I think they're a really dynamic duo. We might not win the hit-outs, but certainly the damage they do once the ball hits the floor has proven to be a great combination for us. Non-traditional, but certainly that's the way that the ruck game is going for us, and we're very happy with that.
Tom, it's always dangerous to ask someone about their boss, but do you want to speak of Ken Inkler and his work this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I talked about, you said the people that have influenced me and supported me, and he's been enormous from the day he arrived. His expectations have been particularly high of the entire group, and he's without fail continued to drive us in that space. There's never a moment or day or week where he doesn't expect the highest of you, but at the same time he's moulded himself into a really rounded, a really rounded leader and companion for the boys. This year's testament to what he's been like his whole career. You know, he's had naysayers and doubters the whole way, but he carries himself exactly the same. He doesn't fall victim to the outside noise, and he focuses on the internal, the Port Adelaide, the people around him, the people that are important to taking this club forward.
Tom, can I ask you about a former teammate of yours, and Jay Schultz? He's battling with concussion at the moment. Have you reached out to him at all, and what do you make of his situation?
Yeah, I haven't reached out to Jay in the recent future, but we've exchanged messages since he's left the club. It's obviously sad to see one of your teammates and someone you played with struggling with issues associated with concussion and whatever else challenges he's got going on in his life. But there's some great support there from the AFLPA, Port Adelaide, the AFL, and hopefully they can help him work through it.
As someone who's taken a few head knocks over your career, does it worry you? Is this a concern for you at all?
I think, concussion's certainly a concern within the game, hence why it's receiving a lot of attention. But in the best way, we're trying to make the game safer and better for current players and past players and future players, so that we see less players leaving the game in a worse position than when they entered.
So you just spoke about how Ollie spoke about you.
Yeah. It seems like you guys are always linked. How do you make it?
Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to celebrate a milestone with one of your best mates and teammates along the way. You probably don't get those opportunities, and it's one of the rare times where it becomes an individual game, or you get individual moments. And to be honest, we don't play footy for the individual accolades, so to be able to share it with someone like Ollie is awesome. Like sharing his Brownlow night with 10 of the boys in Perth last year, I'm sure he'd say that made it an even more memorable occasion. So yeah, to be able to run out next to him tomorrow Arvo is going to be magnificent.
That would have been a tough moment for him when we split the captaincy and the club favoured you and not him. How did you see him handle that and continue to be at Port Adelaide since then?
I think that was an enormous step in his growth and maturity in the way he dealt with that. It's a testament to the individual he's been, and I think when you talk about my skill set, well, we should talk about Ollie's. I think people sometimes get confused about Ollie being a high draft pick and for that reason being incredibly skillful, but Ollie was taken very high by Port Adelaide because he's got an incredible competitiveness and work rate and thirst to be the best player and teammate he can be, and he's shown that his entire career, but particularly in the last 3 or 4 years when he took over the captaincy, and since then he's just taken it to another level, and he's one of those people that you build clubs around, build teams around, and he will lead this club into the future for a long, long time.
Is there a possibility in the future where we see him, I don't want to talk you out of a job, but we see him wear the number 1?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not the one that makes those decisions, but in terms of leadership credentials, he's got as good a resume as anyone, and we talk about leading by our actions on the field, and he does that every single week.